Here's a question for some of those modelers out there. Have you ever considered flipping your model railroad? Okay, so it's not literally just flipping it upside down and wrecking everything. It's actually to do with orientation in regards to flipping or rotating. And normally, when you talk about flipping, you're talking about mirroring on a horizontal or a vertical plane. So maybe you're taking it from as you would look at it, like south to north. Maybe you're flipping it so you're looking at it north to south, and that sort of thing. So you're changing around the normal orientation of what you would see. And there's a lot of reasons for doing a flipping or a rotation or something like that. Sometimes it's for aesthetic purposes. Maybe a scene looks better going opposite to the way it is in real life. Maybe it's because if you've got a layout or a big railroad where there's multiple towns or multiple things modelled, maybe one of them doesn't work properly in what would be the real world orders, and maybe you've got to flip it for it to work properly. Sometimes I've seen it in a couple of model railroads where they've actually flipped just one town, completely the opposite way around, because if they did it how you'd do it in real life, they'd have to cut out about 2/3 of the industries or things like that because of the way they've had to cram things into the space or compress them to actually make them fit. So rather than just omit it and just have plain railroad, because it's obviously a big thing to miss and say an entire town stop, they've just mirrored what it should be, so they can actually get some results. And I've actually been thinking about this issue as well, because I have actually flipped the railroads. So this on the screen is how the railroad has previously looked in the last video I did, and you'll probably see a little card in the top right corner about that one. And it's all very similar. You've got the meat processing plant here on the right, not the southern meat processing plant. You've got the car ferry over here to the left, and then you've got the railroad served warehouse here, along with the second track. And then you've got a little track going off here to a off-scene staging area to represent lines to the west, and also you've got this storage yard next to the meat packing plant to represent the lines to the east, or so something along those lines. But something came to me, and I can't remember where it was, and I suddenly had the realisation maybe things would be better if they were flipped around. And the reason I thought about this is primarily the car ferry. So the car ferry, as you see here, is facing, if you're looking at this as a standard compass direction, is actually facing west on a model railroad which is supposed to be set in eastern or northeastern New York, to the point where it's sort of in what would affect what some might consider New York Central Territory. So it's just like one of the things where it's like you didn't really sit, because if you're going to have the car ferry there, it either means the meatpacking plant and this sort of stuff is further into New York, or we're actually on the wrong side of the river, and this is actually, North New York rather than Eastern New York. Because obviously the railroad, the New York Harbour Railroad, which this is supposed to model, actually has a connection with the New Haven, all the way on its eastern side, and then it connects to further portions of its own railroad system and to other railroads via the car ferry on this, which is supposed to be its westernmost point, or almost westernmost point, because we've got a line here. So my thought was, well, the car ferry doesn't fit having it there, and realistically it should be on the opposite side, because that then makes more sense, because then you're looking at the railroad as you would do from a south, north, or a sort of like a south. You're looking at it a different way. You're looking at it from sort of like a north westerly towards a southeasterly, if you like. So you're looking at it a lot more realistically. You're looking at it where your car ferry is actually facing towards the central New York, sort of thing. So it actually would look better. So that's actually what I've done. I've actually taken some time. I think it took about 10 to 20 minutes. I've actually flipped the railroad completely vertically, so it's actually a mirror image, or almost a mirror image. There are some differences when I've been tinkering with it. So everything still is pretty similar. We still have the car ferry, and just above that we have the railroad served warehousing. And obviously we've got the meat packing plant here on what is now the left hand side, or would be the eastern side. So we're actually sort of north is actually where you'd be standing, and south is actually sort of like the blank void above the L, if you like. And because I flipped the railroad, there's actually been something else that caught my eye as well, and it's something I've actually mentioned not that long ago, is that this is supposed to be towards the end of this section of the New York Harbour. So the argument then is, well, why would you continue it further, what would be west? Is there any reason you'd extend it further west? There is a trolley line already which comes in and then goes around and then out off scene. So this is possibly like a more of an interurban line where you're taking it off the main street trackage and going on to normal New York Harbour main line, and that sort of stuff. So it's just like, well, there isn't really a reason you to keep it unless you were doing a passenger line. Then it would make sense, but in that case you wouldn't need a big thing like this. You could probably just have it curve 90 degrees around and have it that way. So obviously this staging yard is very much subject to discussion, and something I mentioned earlier was having, if this is supposed to be sort of like the westernly sort of terminus, or almost terminus, you probably wouldn't need any further trackage west, because you've got a car ferry, and the further centre into New York you go, the harder it is to get right to street trackage and that sort of stuff. Even if you're a very old railroad, sort of like around, even if you'd originated pre-Kaufman, land prices in New York would be quite high, and the further into central New York you go, even by the age of the Kaufman Act, a lot of the industries have sort of moved, what would be quote unquote industries, have moved out into more of the suburbs and the cheaper sort of areas, so you wouldn't actually get any more industries. So there wouldn't be any real reason for the rail to extend further westwards into the city. So actually what will probably happen is this section here will probably just get binned, and you'll just effectively have a longer, what in UK model terms would actually be termed a head shunt, which is just basically a place where you'd be able to use it as a runaround extension, so you could use it to push a couple of cars and then take them off to a different bit, and that sort of stuff. So this actually brings up a good idea about how to expand the road as well, because if we're not needing this section here for changing trains around, what we can actually do is effectively split it. I'm going to select base plates layer again. You split it here and move this entire section, what would technically be further west. And why I would say that is that you can actually move this further west, and you can actually take sidings off here into a rail served warehouse. Now this is rail served obviously, but this is rail served where it goes up to a platform on the outside, and then it's loaded into freight cars. What I'm talking about rail served is that these would actually curve off into the warehouse or mill or that sort of stuff itself, so you wouldn't actually have that sort of issue. So this would probably be quite good for like a food sort of warehouse or perishable traffic, that sort of stuff, where you'd need more weatherproofing. So this sort of rail served warehouse would probably be better served to like general merchandise and that sort of stuff. But if you wanted food stuff, maybe you'd want your boxcar, that sort of stuff, in more weather suited protection, in which case having your freight cars be pushed directly into the building, where the building is actually acting as your weather protection, is probably going to be better for you. And that also means that I can actually possibly run a bit more road this way. So if I move this over here, as a if you like a suggestion, I can actually have turnouts here that go off into the building. Maybe add a little 16 stud extension so that there's actually some decent space inside for a boxcar or two, and just have it curve off into the actual warehouse itself, and then that solves the problem, if you like. It also means that then if there is for example, say, I don't know, a gondola load with maybe some vegetables or something like that, there's something where it's just been freshly processed but needs to get, maybe sorted through and qualified in terms of what grade, all that sort of stuff, you can probably shunt it in there and away you go. It's something different, and you'd probably want, and hopefully in post-editing I'll add a picture of the sort of warehouse scene I'm envisioning, of the steam locomotive. Obviously it wouldn't be steam locomotive, it'd be diesel or electric, but it sort of gives the idea. And that's really what the whole point of the video is that, sometimes flipping a railroad can actually be a good thing. So that's it from this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see if you've got any questions or comments, put them in the comment section below, or when I share it on Facebook you can always put it there as well. So that's it from me, and see you in the next one.